I had taken a hiatus from camping for a couple of years, but recently, I decided to rekindle the outdoor spirit and organized a trip with a group of friends. Some familiar faces joined in, including one friend who brought along their new fiancée. Excitement filled the air as we set out, ready for a weekend of reconnecting with nature. I had booked a familiar campsite, but upon arrival, it became evident that things had changed. The once well-trodden foot trails were now overgrown, as if the area had been abandoned for years. Nature had taken back its territory, with healthier trees, thicker shrubs, and a riot of colorful foliage. The lockdown had seemingly allowed the forest to reclaim the land. In the past, we had all shared a common respect for the woods, but this time around, my companion seemed different. The past few years had been tough for everyone, and the desire to let loose was palpable. However, the line between unwinding and disrespecting nature began to blur. Branches were snapped off trees, beer cans littered the forest floor, and even hot coals from the fire pit were carelessly spread around just for the thrill. I tried to rein in their behavior, reminding them of the importance of respecting our surroundings. But my pleas fell on deaf ears, as they handed me a beer and told me to chill. As the evening wore on, their rowdy behavior only intensified. Frustration mounted within me, and eventually, I decided to call it a night. Restlessness plagued me even though I wasn't physically tired. The cacophony of my friends' loud conversations and needless yelling about inconsequential matters made it impossible for me to find peace. Eventually, fatigue got the better of me, and I turned in early. In the eerie quiet after everyone else had settled around the fire, I found myself tossing and turning. Unable to shake off my unease, I decided to get up one more time. I crawled out of my tent and walked towards the tree line to relieve myself. As I looked up, the crescent moon peeked through the canopy, casting shadows on the dense foliage. However, my gaze was drawn to something else, two eyes staring directly at me. Startled, I covered myself up, only to discover that the eyes belonged to the new fiancée. In the moonlight, I could make out her silhouette, but something was off. The normally reflective whites of her eyes were absent, and the way she stood seemed unnatural. "Haley, what are you doing out here?" I called out. To my horror, she mimicked my words and even replicated my voice perfectly. A chill ran down my spine, and I took a step back, only for her to mirror my movement. The unsettling encounter continued as she imitated everything I said and matched my every step. Concerned that something might be wrong with her, I asked if she was feeling all right. However, she responded once again with my voice, sending shivers down my spine. Realizing I was ill-equipped to handle the situation alone, I retreated towards my friends' tents. Panicking, I woke them up, urging them to leave immediately. They dismissed my claims, thinking I was hallucinating. Desperation and fear consumed me as I tried to convince them of what I had witnessed, but their skepticism prevailed. The car ride back home was a silent one, filled with the tension that lingered from the strange encounter. Despite their attempts to convince me otherwise, I knew I wasn't crazy. Something inexplicable had happened in the woods that night, and it left me questioning the very essence of the camping trips I once enjoyed. Now, the memory of those haunting white eyes and the mimicry of my own voice lingers, casting a shadow over the prospect of ever returning to the solace of the great outdoors. The experience has left me on edge, wondering if the forest had indeed adapted to the absence of humans, and our return had disrupted the delicate balance that once existed. My girlfriend and I were avid weekend campers, nestled in the heart of the Appalachian region in Virginia. The routine of escaping into the serene wilderness became our sanctuary, providing respite from our stressful weekday lives. We had embarked on numerous camping trips in the Appalachian Mountains, each one bringing its own set of unique adventures. However, nothing could have prepared us for the unsettling turn of events that unfolded during what we assumed would be just another routine camping excursion. It was a Saturday morning when we decided on a relatively small 3-mile trail leading to a secluded camping ground on a flatter part of the mountain. Despite our familiarity with the area, the prospect of exploring new spots always enticed us. The drive from our home was only 45 minutes, but as we neared our destination, rain began to pour. Rain in the mountains was not unusual, so we paid it little mind, determined not to let it dampen our spirits. Arriving at the trailhead, which was conveniently just off the side of the road, we noticed only one other car parked nearby. Oddly, its passenger door was ajar by a few inches. We scanned the vicinity for the absent owner but found no one in sight. Deciding to be good Samaritans, I approached the vehicle and closed the door, noting that the passenger seat was already soaked from the rain. Shrugging it off, we carried on with our plans, assuming the car's owner had simply overlooked the door. As we unloaded our camping gear, we couldn't help but marvel at the lack of crowd, given the trail's apparent popularity on Google reviews. Rain notwithstanding, we were determined to enjoy our getaway. The hike itself took about 2 hours, mostly uphill, and we finally reached the camping site. To our surprise, we discovered a small tent already pitched in the middle of the flat area. It seemed inconspicuous, probably belonging to a lone camper seeking refuge from the rain. Setting up our tent in a far corner, we spent the next hour inside, enjoying some food and attempting to dry our belongings. Suddenly, we heard voices outside, muffled by the rain hitting our tent. Curiosity getting the better of me, I unzipped the front and was taken aback to find 2 men kneeling just a couple of feet away. Startled, I managed a greeting as they introduced themselves, claiming they had been at the site for a few days. Something about their demeanor felt off, and a tinge of discomfort settled in. Despite our unease, we decided to retire for the night. Hours later, I awoke, rain still pattering on the tent. Needing to use the bathroom, I donned a makeshift rain poncho and ventured out. Amidst the rain, I heard faint voices, disorienting in the dark. As my senses honed in, I noticed the tent in the middle with its front zipper wide open and seemingly empty. Concerned, I rushed back to our tent, waking my girlfriend to share the unsettling discovery. Just as we deliberated on our next move, voices emerged from behind our tent. Panic set in. Grabbing a small pocket knife, I ventured outside, only to find the 2 men standing motionless just feet away. Their stoic expressions sent shivers down my spine, and it became clear they harbored ill intentions. In that chilling moment, I signaled to my girlfriend to pack quickly, leaving our bags behind. As we fled towards the trail, the men made no attempt to pursue us, merely watching as we sprinted in terror. 10 minutes of frenzied running passed before we slowed to a brisk walk, eventually reaching the car. To our dismay, the other parked car was still there, its passenger door ajar once more. Seeking refuge at the nearest gas station, we promptly called the police. Days later, an investigation revealed the car belonged to a missing older man, his belongings stolen, and his tent pitched at the campground. The 2 men, however, remained elusive. The older man's disappearance remained a mystery, intensifying the lingering dread of what might have befallen us that night. The haunting image of those emotionless men standing in the darkness continues to pervade my memories, a stark reminder of the thin line between serenity and peril in the great outdoors. The unanswered questions and unresolved fears serve as a sobering testament to the unpredictability that can lurk beneath the tranquility of nature. In my late 20s and early 30s, I was fortunate enough to have a job that allowed me to travel extensively. However, the nature of my work meant that I usually only spent a couple of days in each location. On one such trip to Pennsylvania, I found myself finishing a day early, leaving me with an extra day to spare before my flight. Eager to make the most of this rare opportunity, I decided to explore the beautiful forests and trails in the area. I woke up early, ready for a day of adventure, but to my dismay, I realized I hadn't packed any hiking clothes. Undeterred, I headed to the store to grab the essentials. The trail I had my eyes on was about an hour away from my hotel, and I arrived just before noon. The solitude of the path, with towering trees on either side, promised a welcome escape from the constant hustle of my demanding job. As I ambled along the trail, reveling in the tranquility of nature, I noticed a figure up ahead. A man, seemingly asleep with his head down and a hoodie obscuring his face, sat on the ground. As I approached, he lifted his head, locking eyes with me. It was an eerie encounter, and despite my initial discomfort, I continued on my way, periodically glancing back to ensure he wasn't following. After a couple of hours, fatigue set in, and I decided to take a break. Finding a cozy spot on a small log, I settled down to enjoy a snack. To my surprise, the man I had passed earlier emerged on the trail, making his way toward me. Though still a distance away, I hastily packed my bag, hoping to avoid any interaction. My attempt failed, as he caught up with me, stopping right in front of where I sat. My unease escalated when he reached into his pocket, producing a wallet. "I think you dropped this," he said, his gaze unwavering. Instinctively, I denied it was mine, but he insisted, growing visibly agitated. Unsure of his intentions, I reluctantly accepted the empty wallet, and with a sinister smile, he declared, "You're welcome," before sauntering away. Perplexed and uneasy, I scrutinized the wallet. It was worn and old, a typical brown folding wallet, but devoid of any contents. Bewildered, I decided to head back to my car. With over 2 hours of daylight left, I attempted to enjoy the walk, but the bizarre encounter lingered, casting a shadow over my thoughts. As I approached my car, parked facing the trail, I noticed a looming shadow behind it. A man, crouched down, seemingly waiting for me. Panic set in, and I carefully unlocked the passenger door, managing to slip into the driver's seat before he reached me. Locking the doors, I watched as he pounded on the window, screaming for the return of the mysterious wallet. Swiftly reversing out, I sped away, leaving him in the distance. Breathing a sigh of relief, I drove to the nearby police station to report the incident and hand over the wallet. The unnerving encounter stayed with me, prompting me to reflect on the purpose of the empty wallet. Though it remained a mystery, I was grateful for my safety and vowed to carry a small pocket knife on future walks, an essential companion in an unpredictable world. It was late October last year, and the weather was perfect for hiking, just the right balance between not too hot and not too cold. I often ventured into the wilderness with a group of friends, but their unpredictable work schedules made it challenging to plan hikes together. Undeterred, I frequently embarked on solo excursions, relishing the tranquility of the great outdoors. With a rare weekend off, I decided to explore a hiking and camping trail nearby, one I had traversed a couple of years earlier and always wanted to revisit. I parked my car in a small gravel lot on a Saturday morning, ready for a solo adventure. The initial miles were easy, leading through flat, grassy fields before winding into a forest at the base of a small mountain. Midday approached as I immersed myself in the woods, and that's when I noticed a figure ahead. Initially uncertain of his direction, I soon realized he was walking toward me. This trail wasn't particularly popular, and the absence of a backpack on the stranger caught my attention. I was hours into the hike, far from any reasonable endpoint, and the absence of even a water bottle seemed odd. As we drew closer, he waved, and I reciprocated cautiously. Passing by, he abruptly stopped, the sound of crunching dirt indicating a pivot. I glanced back, and there he was, facing me, posing a question that sent shivers down my spine. "Where's your group at?" he asked, his tone unsettling. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Was he aware of my usual hiking companions, or was he trying to ascertain if I was alone? Regardless, the situation made me uneasy. I stammered, telling him they were a few minutes behind me. "Good," he replied with a smile before resuming his journey. Unease settled in, prompting me to choose a spot off the main trail to set up camp, erring on the side of caution. Finding a flat area about half a mile from the trail, I pitched my tent and tried to shake off the eerie encounter. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I ate my pre-packed lunch and retreated into my tent, hoping for a peaceful night. Sleep proved elusive, and in the dead of night, I heard footsteps from the trees behind my tent. My heart raced as the steps, unmistakably human, drew nearer. They stopped abruptly, leaving me frozen with fear. Hours passed, and as dawn broke, I cautiously unzipped the tent, expecting the worst. To my relief, the area seemed deserted. Packing up quickly, I ventured back to the trail, my senses heightened. A few steps in, I spotted clear footprints behind a tree near my campsite. Panic set in, someone had been lurking, waiting. Sprinting back to the trail, I walked briskly, paranoid and alert. Fortunately, the journey back to my car remained uneventful, though the feeling of being watched lingered. I shared my unnerving encounter with friends, and their unanimous response was relief that nothing worse had transpired. Reporting the suspicious activity to the police yielded limited results. While the mystery man's true intentions remain unknown, the experience left an indelible mark on my solo hiking adventures. Now, I approached the wilderness with heightened caution, rarely venturing out without my trusted group of friends. May others be spared from such eerie encounters in the heart of isolated forests. About 2 years ago, I embarked on one of my customary long walks in the woods, an activity I relished, particularly during the summertime. On this particular day, I set out early, ready to immerse myself in the tranquility of the sprawling woodland that harbored a multitude of paths leading deeper into its heart. As was my routine, I decided to deviate a bit and walk down a bank to be alongside a river. Although glimpses of the water could be caught from higher vantage points, the majority of the time, it was more audible than visible. This path was also notably more remote compared to the others. Armed with a book, some food and drink, and a first aid kit in my bag, I ventured forth. Hours passed, and I found myself wandering further, exploring the serene surroundings. However, an unsettling feeling began to creep over me. I tried to dismiss it, attributing it to my imagination, but the intensity of the discomfort persisted. Typically at ease in the great outdoors, I couldn't shake the unease settling in. Deeper into the woods, the loneliness became unnerving, and the disquiet within me grew stronger. Trying to convince myself that I was only scaring myself, I pressed on. And then, it happened, a cloaked figure, gloved and wearing a mask, emerged abruptly in front of me. The mask was reminiscent of a crow's face, akin to a plague doctor's mask. Startled and alarmed, I jumped back, my senses on high alert. Despite the shock, I wanted to appear nonchalant, as if the figure hadn't fazed me. Awkwardly, I quipped, "Okay, good one. I'll be on my way now." The figure remained silent, tilting its head as I circumvented it and continued down the path. Glancing back, I was chilled to find the figure standing in the same spot, watching me intently. Feeling shaken, I kept walking, trying not to show my nerves. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me, and I risked a glance over my shoulder. The figure was still there, staring, but this time, it gave me a wave, an eerie, sinister wave. it sent shivers down my spine. In a moment of foolishness, feeling distanced enough, I defiantly flipped the figure off. Instant regret washed over me as the figure transitioned from a waving stance to an unhinged, full-on run in my direction. Fear coursed through me, and I didn't stick around. I sprinted, fueled by adrenaline, with the figure in pursuit, emitting intense, almost demonic noises. The thought of my demise consumed me, but the chase finally came to an end when I managed to outrun the bizarre pursuer. Gasping for breath, I ascended onto an open footpath, where I was greeted by joggers and dog walkers. Relief washed over me, and my nervous state gave way to a mix of emotions. Once safe, I tried to alert as many people as I could about the encounter. The entire incident was reported to the police, who investigated the area. Yet, the deep, wooded expanse made it challenging to determine the extent of their coverage. To this day, no reports have surfaced, and nothing, neither person nor anything resembling the mysterious figure, has been found. Returning home by bus, I felt fortunate but detached and uneasy. The vivid memory of that harrowing experience lingers, a constant reminder that still sends shivers down my spine. The woods, once a place of solace, now remain off-limits, and I've sworn off venturing too far off the beaten track alone. The specter of that encounter haunts my thoughts, an indelible mark on my psyche.